No, I guess we'll follow it on this Anthony's screen. Never mind. But one thing they did on all the forms, they made the lines longer for putting in clients' names, which is helpful. You ever run out of room when you're putting in a client's name, especially when you have a trust, which people often ask me, okay, I've got a seller, home's in a trust. How do I list the seller's name? They never like my answer because it's Anthony Carr. No, actually, it'd be Mark Anthony Carr of the Mark Anthony, trustee of the Mark Anthony Carr Trust, dated December 13th. So it can be really long, and now it's got a little more room, which is great. And they took out facts from any party's contact information. What years? Oh yeah, it's almost 2025.
Wow.
So I don't know. When was the last time you used a fax machine? So um
To
never.
to D poor.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, they're the only ones.
Still
So
got to send stuff to D poor by fax if it's a
yeah,
credit
so
card.
they took that out. Hey,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
great. We're saving space. Take out fax. All right. Three-letter word. But here's the listing agreement that is now in NVAR's site. It's on that list of forms changes, goes into effect in how many days we got to the new year? January 1st. And let me pull up, I highlighted on my side what was changed. They gave you a quick list of the changes in their summary page. They broadened the options for broker compensation. And if you, thanks, Anthony, if you go back to the form, and you can see, okay, I'm gonna back up my whole thing here. Let me put this over. All right, maybe not. The listing broker compensation. Now there's this, you can see a little box you can check for a percentage of the gross sales price, a different box you can check for a specific dollar amount. This is all paragraph 6A. And then to the right of that, another box where it could be and or other. Thanks, Anthony. Wow, I like your circles.
I've been doing this a long time.
Hey, I can tell you're a Zoom whiz. And uh, and they put this other in there. What their website says, NVAR's explanations of all these things, is to allow just for uh, more variety or just options. I guess you could put pretty much anything in there that everybody agrees to, and including variable rate commission if you want to put that in there too. One thing they did take out though is the specific part that was for variable rate commission. Do you all remember that? There used to be a little
Yeah.
paragraph here for variable rate. Did anyone ever use that, by the way? Did you ever use that, Anthony?
I
Okay.
used it because we didn't do dual agency, and that's where I put in the language of B,
Okay.
additional listing brokerage for unrepresented, but that's where I put that.
Okay.
And
Okay.
now that it's gone and they put in B, we never needed it, and I guess they decided to just remove it altogether.
Okay. Variable rate is it's been used, and I guess it will continue to be used, where the listing compensation can change based on whether or not the listing broker is also going to represent the buyer. That's the most common use. Any other uses for variable rate?
That's generally it.
That's yeah.
And that's the way it was. It's not that I had additional listing brokerage compensation. I
Okay.
had, if it's, let's say it was 6%, it's 6%, three to me, three to them. If
Right.
I have an unrepresented buyer, it's 4.5. And that was the variable rate. And then
Right.
in the MLS, we had a little box we had to click. Is this a variable compensation?
Okay.
So then the agents were informed that, yeah, I'm getting more on my side if I don't have if I have an unrepresented buyer. That's what that was all about.
Well, you can still do that,
Yeah.
but you just put it here. So this paragraph 6A, this new version of the listing agreement, you can use the other part there. Okay. Um, I guess, yeah, this the part that Anthony just put a circle on. So that's for the additional listing broker compensation when there's no buyer agent. But if you want some different compensation when the listing broker represents both, then you can put that in the other space at the top, paragraph 6A.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on that so far? That's really it. That's all they changed on the listing agreements. So not a lot. You can do all the same things, just a little different place to put it. The next form, Anthony, if you go there, this is similar. The buyer broker agreement. They
Yeah.
put a little line in there, just like on listing agreements. So if you go down to the compensation part, a little further down, there it is. So a similar thing, buyer broker compensation. Is it percentage of sales price, or is it going to be a specific dollar amount, or is this other something else? And on for variable rate, I can see that going on the listing broker compensation. Here in the other, I can't. Maybe y'all can help me. I can't think of too much else you would put in here for a buyer broker compensation because you know,
The only variable rate I would see is like, hey, if you buy your mom and dad's house, it'll be X. If I'm
okay,
taking you out and we're looking at properties, I'm going to charge you 3%.
okay,
And right here, I have a $495 service fee for me, and or other if purchaser buys parents' home, the rate will only be 1% or something like that.
okay.
But I guess you could include that in other terms on the bottom of the agreement too.
Sure. Yeah, you could do that. All right. So if mom and dad are living in a place that fits your client's criteria and maybe it's going to happen, then okay,
That's how I would see it.
sure. All
Or
right.
I get the Lamborghini, something like that.
Or you get the really. All right. That's a good deal.
Well, that's a good question, David. Can you get something other than cash for service for someone? I mean,
You'll need to talk to your broker, but I don't know how, there's going to be the broker,
Sheila.
the broker part. The broker's going to get a couple of tires out of that
Yeah,
Lamborghini or so. I don't know. So it'd be tough to split that up.
yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, okay.
okay. Let's keep going. Next form. So this is the list, the lease,
Right to lease.
exclusive right to lease agreement, not the lease itself, but the brokerage agreement. The similar line for broadening, what NVAR called broadening the options for broker compensation. What we're talking about is just that long line for other. You can see it right there in your screen, paragraph 6A. They took out the variable rate compensation paragraph, just like on the listing agreement for sales. And then what they did is clarified tenants broker compensation, if any, is optional. And this is following along the changes that have been being made for the last few months. With the NAR settlement,
Right here.
making it clear, optional, everything's optional. Well, including this. And so
I do want to make a point here. Excuse me, David. All
Yep.
right, folks, look, on broker compensation, we changed the way we were doing it for sellers. This is still the old-fashioned way. You put 100% here of the first full month's rent, and you're offering out what you're going to pay to the tenant. So you do 100%. I do 30, so I'd put 30% here, and it's because what I'm getting is 75% and 25%. And I'm checking with agents and saying, do you know you're taking now 50% because you're offering out 25? And they didn't know that. So this has remained the same way pre August 17th. Just keep that in mind. So if you intend to get 75% of it, then you got to put 100 here and 25 in the tenant's broker compensation paragraph. That's it.
Yep. Very helpful. What else?
I think that's it. Is that it?
Broker compensation for the tenant.
I think it's it.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Representing the tenant agreement, they now have terms in here for ratification of the lease to the term end date, which is helpful. Also broadening the options for compensation, that long line again, for other possibilities, percentage or specific dollar amount or other. It's right there. Those are really the two main things. Some formatting changes. Yeah,
Okay.
so not a whole lot there. This release is a little, I think, a little more substantive changes happened here.
Yeah.
So the old lease release agreement. So this is where it's the brokerage agreement is going to be terminated, and this is a release agreement saying the parties are walking away. But NVAR added this in to make it clear whether or not the buyer or the tenant or the seller landlord still has to pay compensation.
Where this would be, folks, where I've seen this happen is the buyer gets into an argument with the agent and they want to fire them and they're already in a contract.
Yeah.
That's what this is for. And we've had some where we've released our brokerage relationship, but we have not released the compensation. That's what this is about.
Yeah, and this can be helpful for the brokerage because if brokerage doesn't want to represent them anymore, there's falling out. Okay,
Yeah.
you can let go of that. But if you are still entitled, to the compensation,
Right.
you keep that in there. And then this early termination fee part, they expounded on this a little bit too, to make it clear. Okay, so if there's an early termination on the brokerage agreement originally, is that still going to stay in place? Or are we going to negotiate something else at this point? So the first box is, yep, it's still there. You got to pay it. Or the second box is, no, we're going to change that. We can write in something new.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you all often have early termination fees in your agreements?
It's a minority.
Minority. Okay.
Most agents don't have it. I have it in mine
Okay.
because, and most my sellers get it. You've put money into it and then they leave. They're you more willing. The buyers, they kind of get it if you've gone out a lot. If you haven't gone out a lot, they don't get it. Why we only worked a week? Why am I paying you $500? But you've been working several months and you get $500. They know they're compensating you for your time and your gas.
And $500 for several months of work, is that like 50 cents an hour?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's about that.
That's the going rate.
Yeah. This is interesting on the appraisal contingency, unless there's more on this one. But the next form, so NVAR wanted to clarify this first part. So look at paragraph A. Appraisal contingency. Buyer may satisfy this contingency or negotiate sales price by 9 p.m. blank days after ratification. What used to be here is buyer may satisfy this contingency or negotiate sales price or void contract.
Yeah, that was weird.
And that was a little inconsistent because this doesn't give an automatic right to void. It says, okay, the list of 1, 2, and 3 right after this paragraph A, 1, 2, and 3, the kind of notices you can deliver. But one of those notices is not void contract, at least not yet. And maybe you all know how this works already. So 1 and 2, number 1 is you can deliver notice, hey, appraisal is equal to greater to sales price, let's go to closing. Number 2, I don't care about the appraisal, let's go to closing. That's the notice they can give. Number 3, this is really the meat of it. Appraisal's less than sales price. I'm not going forward unless you lower sales price, seller. And then we go into this negotiation period. But this doesn't give an automatic right to void if appraisal comes in low. The seller has a chance to lower the price. They can negotiate. And then if they can't agree, then buyer can give notice to void, but not until after the seller has been given a chance. Y'all see that?
Yeah.
And so NVAR took that out of the beginning of paragraph 8 to avoid any confusion on that. This form does not give an automatic right to void. First, there's a negotiation.
I think what they were doing with A was, here are the 3 things you can do. Now let's talk about it. And someone said, hey, you told me I could void. I'm going to void.
Right.
Per paragraph A, and they lost. And they're like, okay, that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what happened.
And I think this is a good change to avoid any confusion. And NVAR, they make changes like this when they make a form and they put it out there, and in practice, something comes up. And then they say, oh, we got to fix that. We got to fix that. We got to clarify that. And that is it on this form. The lease, Virginia residential landlord, VRLTA Lease Agreement. This is a couple of things have changed, not a whole lot. Landlord tenant. Sorry, I didn't say it right. They have this longer definition of rent in case there's any confusion of what rent is. We don't know from NVAR's comments on this why they felt they had to make this change, but now it is there. And I'm looking at their comments right now. But when they say it's from the act, I guess I'll look at the act to see if that's cut and
I
paste.
think it just means probably somebody argued about something. So they say,
But that's usually how these things happen.
yeah,
Somebody made a complaint. I've actually got the, or I can look that up later. I've got the act right
okay,
from me.
great.
Um, yeah, it's not in the definition part of the act itself. So anyway, they felt like they had to make this change. Here we go. If the case is any confusion, hopefully you all never had any parties who were confused about the definition of rent and what that means.
Right.
This whole section next, that was there before. That's not new. This whole chart, that was already in existence on the
Right.
prior version.
I think what I was seeing is no fee shall be collected unless it is listed below. That people were getting in there and then like, well, I need a fee for X. Well, it's not on the lease. Well, that's what I always charge.
So
You
that's what's
know,
been, okay.
I think because we were usually it's a move-in fee by the condo,
Okay.
something like that. Which just as a sidebar again, folks, remember we do have a new form below that we're going to go through about offering of compensation.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that form, put it here that you're going to get compensated 30% or 25%, and then click other. Who's it paid to? KW United. Okay.
Yep.
But we got a new form coming up, so that's okay. Paragraph 2.
Yep. Grounds. So one little word they added here to include what's being rented. Well, includes grounds. Don't know if that was an issue on any of your leases, but just to make it clear, we're talking about dirt. All right. Somebody must have complained.
Quit having picnics out there. I didn't rent that to you.
So there it is. The paragraph 10, they reduced the number of occupants in the chart to 6. Go all the way down. Anyone remember what this used to be?
I think it was 8.
It was 8. Hey, gold star for you. It used to be 8. Maybe they never used it. Maybe they never had that many. But one thing to keep in mind here, occupants is not the same as tenants. So all these people aren't signing the lease. For example, a family, 5-year-old is one of the occupants. Well, they're too young to sign a lease anyway. You got to be at least 18. So that's what this would be for. People living there who are not tenants.
Okay.
All right. And then paragraph.
That also comes into play when you're taking care of somebody who's elderly.
Yep.
Yes, good point.
Good call, Ashley.
College students.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And paragraph 12, they made this a little clearer about who's paying it.
I like this one.
Yeah, it's a little better. The way it used to be set out here was just like on the sales contract, where they had a list of all the utilities, and then they used to have a column on the right which said a whole bunch of lists of yeses. And if the yes was checked, that means landlord's paying it. Well, now it's a little different. It's different sections. Tenants paying, check this. Landlord's paying this. Okay, I think it's clearer.
Most definitely.
Yeah,
I think that's it on this one.
That's pretty much it. Yep, that's all. Let's see, optional rental application. Oh yeah. So on the rental application, now this is here where the tenant can ask on their application, "Hey, will you pay my broker?" And
hey guys, online, if you guys could let me know by a thumbs up emoji, how many of you have actually used this application versus in the last year? How many have had to use this? I have not used this honestly in years. It's all online. Has anybody had to use this? Anybody? That's what I thought. Now, what I would say as a practice, Bo, you have?
Yes, only once.
Wow. And Bo's
I
one of our
know.
new guys.
Yeah, I've had some coaching clients.
Which
but
Bo, actually, you're
one-
not so new anymore. Anyway, what would you say, Vern?
I had a coaching client use one or two, but it's very seldom though.
Yeah. Here's what I would say on this, folks. You get a rental to represent tenant. Slide this across the table and say, great, please fill this out. Okay. It just helps you to see, do they have everything they need? How much money do they have? Who's all going to be in here? because there's this whole thing on the occupants. This was a surprise, a little more this last year than we usually have, where I've got 3 people on the application and suddenly 7 people show up to live in the house. Using this, you'll clear that up. Anyway, moving along on that.
Okay.
Potential adverse consequence.
Yep, we can skip them. There we are. Okay. This was they add a little section here to include the canceling or waiving their rights to void under the Virginia Residential Resale Disclosure Act. I almost never see a buyer doing that anyway, but they can. And that's not new. It's been around for a couple of years, and including all the things you're going to make an offer with that there might be adverse consequences. They included this little section at the bottom.
Yeah, and David, in the contract, I don't see a place where you click to not have this. You'd actually have to write it in, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
that's what I'm seeing. Yeah,
it's got to be on a separate waiver, separate from the contract, and the buyer can only do it after they have been actually given the disclosure.
Oh, okay.
And here's how I can see this happening. I guess one of 2 ways. You can do it as part of the contract, because this is all about making your offer attractive, right? In certain markets, buyer might feel they've got to waive things to get ratified. And this is one thing they could waive, but they've got to get the disclosure first. That's what the act says.
Got it.
So they get the disclosure, maybe posted on the listing. The buyer could, receive it and sign that disclosure then, and at the same time as they make an offer, a separate piece of paper that says, I am also going to waive my right to void under the Virginia Resale Disclosure Act, if they want to do it. But do you see a lot of listing agents asking for that? And I wonder if this is really going to help get ratified anyway. I don't think it's much, common practice to do this.
No, if you could waive the HOA stuff, that would be used more.
Yeah, there's that.
People have done it, even though it's not there, but they'll waive HOA violations.
That could be. Well, that could have been one more thing NVAR put in here. I guess you could use the other space for that.
Yeah.
All right, I have just a couple of minutes left. Solar panels, not a whole lot they changed. Instead of manufacturer, they put in installer. Because manufacturers usually, or may not install. It could be a manufacturer, but it doesn't have to be. And then this... they made this clear here too. This little part that's in bold and italics. If there's more than one solar loan, then there's got to be a separate solar addendum to listing agreement. And if you see, this is all the listing. We're not
same thing. This is installer up here.
Yeah, so this is now the contingency on the contract for solar panels. And one thing they made clear here as well, if you go down to, let's see, paragraph, follow down. It's on the second page at the top, little paragraph B.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is interesting in the sense that it doesn't work like other contingencies we've got, especially not the finance contingency. So the finance contingency on the contract, for getting the loan to buy the home, not for the solar, the buyer, to void the contract, has to get a rejection letter and deliver it to the seller by a certain deadline. Well, here it's different. It's not just, I got rejected, I'm going to give you the letter. It's the other way. It's, I didn't get approved. And if buyer doesn't get approved by that deadline, then the contract's void. You see how that's different?
Yeah.
It's not me getting rejected. It's me not getting approved. So the buyer could say, hey, I never got approved. I didn't get rejected, but I didn't get approved either. I never heard anything. I guess we're void. Now,
and that would be the deadline there?
Yeah. Yeah. It says if they don't get
paragraph
approved.
Above.
Yeah, just above that little I. If they don't get approved by that deadline, according to this, contract is going to be void. They can agree to extend, of course.
Yeah.
And it does say here, good faith efforts, which may be tough to prove, but if after diligent and good faith efforts, buyer fails to obtain approval, then, by the deadline, contract can become void.
So as a buyer agent, folks, y'all need to be emailing your clients, emailing the listing agent On the listing side, you need to be emailing your clients. So it
Yeah.
never comes back that, well, you didn't remind me. You didn't do good thing as an agent and remind me to get this done.
Right.
So,
Hey, David,
Well, I like it too, just because it puts a little pressure on the listing agent to
yes,
get us the information that we need.
right.
Because I've had a few listing agents just kind of throw their hands up and say, hey, you need to do this. And the solar company saying, we need these documents from the seller first.
Right. Same thing with like a VA assumption. The seller would like to toss it on the buyer to get things done, but in that assumption world, it's your account. It's not
Right.
our account. You got to run and do the work. Same thing here. It's your solar financing. It's not ours. They're not going to just open up their books and give it to us. So it does put pressure on the seller and on the listing agent. Get this done, and according to this, get it done by this many days after ratification. 15 days. How long does it take?
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt, you gonna say something?
yeah, there's just check me if there's an inconsistency here. You've got BII saying that if you don't get approval, no, scroll back to where you were at, please.
here?
Same paragraph. Yeah, no, same paragraph, the solar loan financing contingency. So the I says if you don't get approval by, the X date, contract is void. It just becomes void. But
Right.
the paragraph below says if seller fails to comply with delivery and notice requirements in paragraph, either one of the two paragraphs above, buyer may, at buyer's option, void the contract.
I see right here. Yeah. You're saying right here?
Yeah. So,
It's not like it just voids automatically without anyone saying anything.
well, BII would say it's you failed to get approval
Yeah.
by the date X from
Voided.
it's void. It's not voidable. The contract is just void.
Contract is void. And so I would say it is void,
Yeah.
but then followed up with this language here.
Yeah.
You
That-
still need to deliver notice to void.
Yeah.
And as a listing agent, just don't leave something like this very simple open to sabotage the deal, and you just be all over that seller. Get this done, and then if they can't get it done, say, well, then we need an addendum that says we can't get it done, but we're still moving to closing. Yeah. All right, Dave, you got to go.
Sorry, guys. Yep, I gotta run.
right.
But take care. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. All right, guys,
Thank you,
I'll take it from here and just go on this brand new form that's come up. And this is really modeled after what is happening over in Maryland. Listing agents of leases. This is the one you need to get filled out by your landlord. So the parties are the listing brokerage, or it's between the listing brokerage or the landlord to whom? It's to the tenant's compensation is what we're talking about here. It's made on a certain date, about 123 Lois Lane, and the firm name KW United. Now, this agreement is by and between the listing brokerage and tenants brokerage, or the landlord and tenants brokerage. So if you got a FSBO or a rent by owner, it'll be from the landlord to the tenants brokerage. Okay. Or if you've got one of those services where you have a listing company that's just putting it in MLS and they're not doing anything else, then it would be 1B. You get the landlord to agree to this. Well, what are they agreeing to? In the event that the landlord represented by it ratifies a lease, they'll pay this much of the first full month's rent or a flat fee. Okay. Any compensation paid to tenants brokerage is for services tenants brokerage provided to tenant. Parties agree the landlord listing will not be liable for any loss or expense arising out of the holding, disbursement, or failure to disperse the above amount, yada, yada, yada. Now, on the signage of this, let's go with what it is 90% of the time. It's a listing with a brokerage. The landlord broker, that would be me, has to sign this, and then the landlords sign it. You hold, excuse me, you hold on to this form like you would a DPOR form. Okay. Excuse me. And then when you get an application or the agent asks, hey, are you offering anything? You send it over to them. This is not posted on the MLS. and then the tenant's broker signs this. So it means that in the midst of all of these documents that are being signed for a lease, I've got to get in the middle here. It's not just like I go to closing on the lease and I get what's in the lease. I have to have Anthony sign off on as the tenant broker. Or I'm listing the property, the seller signs it, I signed the listing agreement, but I need this form as well. I think it's pretty straightforward, but any questions on this? Okay, good. So this is the only new form that they're introducing at this round. So I'm honestly quite surprised that there was nothing else changed on all the new forms we just released in August. I thought there would be something that they would have come back and said, oops, this is not clear. Let's change it. I was really surprised. I'm glad they introduced the tenant offering of compensation. That was good. So maybe that would be the one qualifies for that. But the rest, I'm just like, wow, they got the buyer broker agreements, the listing agreements, all that together. They think that's really good to go. All right. So as a review, real quick, people keep asking me what's going on as far as the practice of everything. Here's what I'm finding out in the practice of getting compensation as a buyer broker. I'm finding some agents are calling the listing broker, are you offering anything? And then there's the group that's just like, I'll just put it in the list. I'll just put it in the contract. Most of them, what I'm hearing, and you guys that have listed some property, you might want to tell me too, are you hearing anything about, oh yeah, I get a call every time about what's being offered in the MLS. I've had 2 listings since this happened. No one's called me. I offered it because I thought it was the right thing to do, but no one's called me asking. They just put it in there. Is that what you guys are finding? Thumbs up? Yeah. Vern? Anybody else?
Yeah, I've had 4 listings since the change. I think 2 agents called and in the discussion about the property says, well, is your client offering anything? But other than that, people are just putting an amount in the offer.
Yeah. And the ones I asked, I think I asked 2. And then after that one, I was like, okay. The 2, I said, are you offering any compensation? Said the seller is prepared to entertain whatever's put in the contract. That's what I was getting. And so I'm like, okay, that's kind of where we're going.
Yeah, that's what I've been getting too.
Ashley, it's what you're seeing?
Yeah, the most questions I get on compensation is on rentals. I do
Yeah.
get rental agents calling and asking, is there compensation?
Right.
But not on regular listings.
Are you having to have the discussion of where we get the agreement on that rental listing?
What do you mean?
Like, are they saying, okay, I'm getting 25%. Are you going to send me an email that says that?
No.
Okay. Just, it's professional courtesy. Okay.
Yes.
All right, cool. So that's what I'm finding in our world right now is that's where it's going. What I do think we're going to run into, and we kind of already started, is the gophers are going to start raising their head who have not had any training on this whatsoever around January. Okay. So if you're taking some listings, be ready that you're going to have calls with people saying, "Oh, how do I know?" That you'll pinpoint them. They do not know what's going on. They haven't written anything since January of this past year. They didn't know there was a change. They didn't know there was a second change. So be ready, okay, is all I'm saying. Be gentle, be kind, and give the name to Christy because she can recruit them to an office that trains on this stuff, okay? That's the way I look at it. I don't condemn them. I just like, bless you. Your broker didn't do a good job. Let's get you over here and get you trained on that, okay? Seasonal agents, March to August. Is that what you think, Vern? March to August. I don't know. Yeah. But they'll start coming out around February because that's when they're meeting up with their friends, mom, dad, uncle, aunt, and the one deal they're going to do from the office. Yeah. So just be ready for that. I think that's going to tag us a little bit. But probably by next June, July, I think the whole industry, at least in our area, will understand that. And I think next July, we'll probably see another volley of changes in the forms after they've had almost a year to play around with it. Okay. All right. Anything else happening? I'm going to stop this